Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us at Integrate. We have already had our first glitch of the morning, so hopefully this will go much more smoothly, but I'm pretty excited about Project Diamond. You guys know me. I'm Tom Kelly. I'm Automation Alley Executive Director and CEO. Of course, I'm very pleased to be here today alongside Pavan Mazumdar. He's our Automation Alley Chief Operating Officer, and Matt Townsend, Managing Director at Conway McKenzie, a division of Riveron, to share with you the details of this exciting grant program. It really has the potential to be very transformative for our region and especially the manufacturing sector and what we can get out of this. So Project Diamond, for those of you who don't know, aims to jumpstart digital transformation for our region by creating the nation's largest network of blockchain-enabled 3D printers. Focused on strengthening supply chains by initially developing personal protective equipment and then expanding into the production of a variety of parts and products to enhance Industry 4.0 manufacturing capabilities in the US. And so Project Diamond is very ambitious. It's a very ambitious project, but you know what? It's absolutely attainable. So Project Diamond, I should give you a little background. It stands for Distributed Independent Agile Manufacturing on Demand. Distributed Independent Agile Manufacturing on Demand, DIAMOnD. It's open to Oakland and Macomb County companies in terms of a grant, and is funded through a $10 million federal CARES grant that Oakland County gave us, and a $2 million grant from Macomb County in June. It doesn't mean that you can't participate in Project Diamond and the blockchain portion of Project Diamond statewide. But the very fact for the 3D printer or other technology grants, that's for Oakland and Macomb County businesses. So because Project Diamond certifies participating businesses as essential, this is really important, because if you are deemed an essential manufacturer, you can keep operating even if we go through a second shutdown, which may or may not be in the cards for us. I mean, if you asked me 2 months ago, would that be a possibility? I would have said no, but today you have to think, this is a real possibility that we might have to go into some level of shutdown again. The project aims to connect 350 total manufacturers on the Diamond network and will help us accelerate this digital transformation. So we encourage all of you to join us on this digital journey. We know many of you have reached out to us and shown interest in the project, but you might have questions about whether your company qualifies to receive the funding for these assets. You also may be wondering how your company can become part of the Diamond network, which is going to exist well beyond Macomb and Oakland counties, and something you're really going to want to pay attention to. So we're here today, the three of us, and Eric's going to help facilitate questions to really start a dialogue with you and help answer all these questions. And to get started, what we thought was helpful was we have a short video that we're going to play for you that really helps set the stage with Sean Carlson, who's head of economic development for Oakland County. And he's got a good intro on what this means and how this is going to work. And then we'll come back, Pavan and Matt and Eric will be able to answer your questions. So here comes the video, and then we'll be back to do Q&A.
This pandemic, as Tom has mentioned, has really brought into light the importance of Industry 4.0. I've had the opportunity to work with Automation Alley and Tom and Pavan over the last couple of years in a previous position in the Michigan Defense Center, and the importance of this Industry 4.0. But it has really been highlighted with this pandemic of how important this is. Southeast Michigan in particular is really has been the hub of R&D and manufacturing for many years, and we sit on that cutting edge. But as Tom mentioned, what really got highlighted in this pandemic is how dependent we were on other foreign countries and manufacturing taking place. That can't happen anymore. So we were the fortunate recipients of the CARES Act, $219 million that we received as a county, because we are a population of over 500,000. So we qualified. We have put a lot of resources into economic assistance $15 million into stabilization funds for small businesses to make sure that they keep their doors open. We just did a recovery grant, and we're in the process of awarding that. PPE kits so that businesses could reopen their doors. We have invested over $70 million in our businesses in Oakland County. It is important not only for Oakland County for us to keep our doors open, but for the state of Michigan. Oakland County represents 24% of Michigan's GDP, gross domestic product. We are the tip of the spear. And being the tip of the spear, we needed to look at some projects and how we could keep our manufacturing might alive in the county. And no better partners to turn to than Automation Alley, Tom Kelly, and Pavin. And I am, of all the money that we have distributed so far, this grant is the one that I have the most excitement about. Because it really offers an opportunity for transformation to take place and independence and reshoring manufacturing back to the U.S. So the opportunity that's in front of us. And so we're really excited about that here at Oakland County and the partnership with Automation Alley to kick this off. So let me just outline a few of the goals that we talked about in developing this grant, just to give you some background on how it got started. So goal number one is to develop a distributed small manufacturing enterprise network that can produce PPE, personal protection equipment. These are critical supplies for our healthcare personnel, as well as our first responders, as well as our citizens. These are critical supplies for us to get back to doing business as much as normal as possible, but for the safety of our community. So this is what's at hand. No longer, we've been in situations here in Oakland County where we had supplies that we had purchased from China that got taken away from us and redirected in another place. We've had PPE supplies that were import in California and other places around the country that got redirected by FEMA. We want to be able to have more independence of that situation and rely on our know-how right here in Oakland County and our manufacturing might, and make sure that we're lighting up our community in a collective effort to protect our citizens. So this is what we're asking this community. If you are willing to rise to the challenge and join us in this effort to be part of this network that can produce PPE, first and foremost to Oakland County, but also have the opportunity to producing it for other counties in the state of Michigan and the U.S. As well. I don't want to be too presumptuous, but the other benefit is this Industry 4.0, and I'm hopeful that most of you understand what that Industry 4.0, but we also want to just make sure. Industry 4.0 is we are in the next industrial revolution, and it is important for our mom and pop manufacturers to continue to survive. They have been the lifeblood, and they are one of the reasons why we have become the global power that we have in regards to putting the world on wheels. But we also think that there's a lot of opportunity, and we want to make sure that our mom and pops don't get weeded out in Industry 4.0. We want to make sure that they're embracing Industry 4.0, that they know that it's here, and that they continue to have the opportunities at their doorsteps. So you can see the different industrial revolutions through the year, but we're in the middle, and I shouldn't say middle, but we're in the Industry 4.0 now. So what is Industry 4.0? Additive manufacturing, advanced materials, big data, robotics, artificial intelligence, industrial Internet of Things, cybersecurity, cloud computing, all of these words that I'm sure you've heard, but if you haven't, this is what it's all about. And so we need our manufacturing companies to embrace this. Not only is this important for the program that we're putting together for PPE, it'll be increasingly important for the automotive sector. It is already important for the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security. These things are increasingly going to be top requirements in bids and solicitations in the future. And we want to make sure that our manufacturing companies are right there and part of it. So why Oakland County? Oakland County is Michigan's hub with nearly 745,000 workers and more than 39,000 businesses. Of more than 2,900 are manufacturers. And we have the North American Industrial Classification System, which is the 31, 32, and 33 NAICS codes is what they're called. And you could see that picture, and that is a clustering of all the manufacturing that we have going on in Oakland County. So we have, as I said before, the know-how, but we also have the manufacturing might to be more independent of the crisis and dependent upon our own manufacturers to help us with this PPE resolution. So goal 3 is to drive business vitality and diversification. So we want to make sure that we have a bench so that when there is a rise, if there is a rise that's going to happen with the COVID-19, that we've got suppliers ready to supply for our citizens and for our community here in Oakland County. But we also believe if you are one of the lucky 300 companies to be a part of this, we believe that there's an opportunity for you to diversify your business portfolio and to get into defense contracting or aerospace or non-auto manufacturing. And if you're not in auto, possibly an opportunity to get into auto manufacturing as well. So we believe that this is not just to help us answer and ring the bell to answering the crisis and the call for PPE, but an opportunity for you as a manufacturing company to open up and have an opportunity to diversify your business portfolio. So I mentioned this earlier, but the goal for us is to reinvest in our manufacturing companies here in Oakland County and to strengthen the U.S. manufacturing. And we believe that this program takes a giant step towards that goal.
As I'm looking for one of the questions here, it looks like we had one come in. Matt, I was wondering if you could possibly answer this one. I'm not interested in receiving equipment, but I'd like to participate. Can you talk about a little bit about what, if they're not willing to get any equipment, what they could possibly participate in the project?
I think that's more of a Pavan question than a Matt question, but I guess I would pose a question back to that person. That would be, the size or the shape of the equipment is very, very small. The Mark II is no different than a regular microwave that we all first had on our desk or on our kitchen counters. So even though you may think you're going to get this ginormous piece of equipment, it's actually relatively small. And the amount of effort that it takes to operate is very, very low. So the question would be back is, why would you not want that equipment? And you obviously could help the economy, the environment, or as well as the PPE for the state. So that would be my question back. But Pavan, I don't know if you want to jump in and offer any other insight on how anybody could help.
Sure, Matt. Yeah, and so I think this might be coming from someone who is not really in manufacturing, but I think they're motivated because they see themselves as part of the Oakland County ecosystem and broader statewide ecosystem. And so if you're like a tech company or some other type of company that wants to participate, at this time, we're just basically asking you to send us your information. So please definitely fill out the form. We have it at automationalley.com/PPE grant. So if you want to kind of, just identify yourself, we probably won't be in touch for some time, only because we're in the middle of actually sending out this equipment to people. But we foresee opportunities for tech companies, for companies that want to maybe provide some digital services, et cetera, what have you, to participate. We're kind of putting that all together. In our session tomorrow, we're going to dig in a little bit more deeply into the blockchain side of things, the network side of things. the vision for how that's going to work. And that might be a little bit more, informative to provide some clarity on how you can participate. But yeah, if for any reason, if there's interest, please send in your application. It might take some time for someone to get back to you, only because of the logistics of having to send this large number of printers. But we definitely want to hear from you.
Yeah, so we had another question come in that asked, how do you decide which printers to use and who gets those printers? Matt, you want to take that one?
Yeah, thank you. So there really isn't a great science to this, other than there was a very, very limited number of the industrial X7 printers. And the difference between the X7 printer and the Mark II printer is in the functionality of the unit itself is basically zero. The X7 is just a larger envelope than the Mark II. So basically the people who had applied, who had a great deal of experience in programming, especially in terms of SolidWorks, et cetera, are the people that received the X7s versus kind of first-time users who got a Mark II.
Another question that's come in. How will we be introduced to the other 300 firms in the Diamond network?
Yeah, so I can probably take that. So that's really sort of for what we're calling phase 2 in this. Well, actually, there's two components. In phase 1, where we're actually creating this network for the purposes of being able to produce PPE, one of the goals that we have is to actually create a mechanism for companies to get together and exchange ideas and share sort of war stories, et cetera, and build that community around it. But then in phase 2, we also want to create like this formal mechanism where you can actually transact business among each other. And that's part of that broader blockchain Diamond network. But yes, initially, we want to create like Friday lunch and learn sessions. And of course, because of the time they're working with, we're probably not going to be able to do it in person for some time. But we're going to look at some online mechanisms for us to be able to put those together. So stay tuned on that. And that's a great question, because we absolutely want to create a community of companies that learn and work with each other.
Okay. Pavan, I have another question for you. It's on the legal side. In one of the sections of the agreement, it says all right, title, and interest in and to all intellectual property and to any new intellectual property conceived, reduced to practice, or developed under this agreement shall be owned by the grantor. Can you speak to that point a little bit?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting one. And it was brought to my attention like late last week. And at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to actually send it back to our council over at Oakland County. So just so you understand this, the way this all worked is we had a lot of work that we had to do with Oakland County Council, since they are the primary kind of grantors to us. But that's something I would definitely be concerned about as a business owner. So stay tuned on that. We're gonna get some advice from council and get back to you on that. Just as a sort of philosophical point of view, we definitely want companies to be able to use this equipment as if it were their own. And at least the way I understand it is, if you conceive of something, it's yours. So it definitely kind of raised some issues for me as well. And we will get back to you. One of the things we're doing is we're actually putting together a frequently asked questions that talks about the entire program, including legal questions. So we will update that and inform all recipients of the grant when that happens, and if we have to kind of make change to some of the legal language. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Sometimes when you're pushing something really quickly, some of the stuff kind of happens. So we're really looking for you to also kind of look back to us and say, wait a second, that kind of doesn't make sense. And in this particular case, I'll kind of have to agree, and I'll have to go back to our attorneys and say, I don't think this is the intent, and we might want to kind of craft it a little bit differently.
Yeah. We had another question come in, and I can take this one. It was in regards to just high level, what is the logistics of this program? So just from the start to beginning, I'll kind of walk you through it. So, when a company comes on, they apply to the grant, and then we take them through a screening process that's done through Oakland and Macomb County, depending on which county that you reside in. And then we take a look and see which printers make most sense for the company. And then that's when we determine if the company is approved, we'll send out an approval email, send out the contract, get everything ready to go. And at that point, we kind of take you down two different paths. There's the one path, which is the 3D printing, where you'll get the 3D printer, get it installed, get training, get the opportunity to learn how to use it, all those things. And then the other path is taking an assessment through Automation Alley, where you learn about how do I ensure my business is doing the best that it can, and what improvements can I make to make sure I can maximize the value out of this, out of the 3D printing machine. Did I characterize that well, Pavan and Matt? Is there anything else you want to add to that from a high level perspective?
No, I think that covered it. Yeah, Matt.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree, Eric. The only other comment is also there is two technologies. There's also a light guide technology as well as a virtual AR that the applicant has the choice to use as well.
Yep, thank you. Matt, this one's for you. Can you talk about what type of PPE is going to be printed using the 3D printing? And then I guess if you can talk about what would be used with the light guide systems?
Yeah, so the face shields that you've seen so much, especially on TV when the original pandemic appeared, that hospitals were having to use them over and over again. They couldn't get them, etc. So the 3D printing portion would be to printing the headbands, and then the light guide system will be used to assemble the actual face shield itself, as well as cut and sew to make face masks and gowns. And on top of that, we also have 6 metal printers that will be used to print stainless items, various items that the hospital will demand, whether it's a ventilator part or whether it's just an actual unit for the hospitals themselves.
Matt, this next one's for you as well. Can you speak onto the quality control in regards to 3D printing, like with the PPE? There was a couple questions on here regarding, how do we make sure that each PPE that's created is of similar quality to the other?
Well, we can do it two ways. Pavan, why don't you talk about the security in the file itself? And then we can talk about how that file prints and basically the quality control that's built inside the system itself.
Yeah, there was some questions on that too. So go ahead. Sorry, Pavan.
Yeah, so in phase 1, what we have is this command center application that the vendor Markforged is actually building, and that is a very tightly controlled, secure system. So the way the technology works is if we can guarantee quality with one instance of that particular print, we pretty much guaranteed quality with all the 3D printers that are on the network. And that file, once it's created and encrypted, it's absolutely secure. There's it's extremely difficult to either hack it or change it or anything like that. So that's sort of the beauty of what we're calling the command center application in phase 1. In phase 2, when we're talking about having more of the distributed and independent action, there are mechanisms for which you can do the same thing with file signatures. And that's where you would have, once you have a version of a file and that file has a unique hash, it becomes extremely difficult to tamper with it. So that's why we call them tamper resistant. But tamper resistance is extremely high standard in terms of ability to be able to mess with it. And the nice thing about 3D printing technology, at least from Markforged, is that the quality profile of each print is actually a very tight band. And so one of the things that we're looking for is how do you kind of keep squeezing that band so that the ultimate variability that's in the output of the produced component is actually very, very low. And that's sort of this work in progress, but at this point, it's actually pretty high. And Matt, I know you've used Markforged in your career, so you can talk about it from the automotive side where the quality expectation is extremely high.
Yeah, and just before I touch on that, the way the Diamond Control Center works is when there is the action of the PPE being generated, all other abilities to print on the network then disappear. So basically what happens is I'm working along and then all of a sudden we get a print that gets pushed down in order to print PPE. The only file available for you to select to print is now that PPE file. So it's the same file across the entire network. From there, that band and those different bits and pieces that get printed of the headband then go to an assembler. So at that point, the assembler also has a VR image that it's going to check against. And then it is assembled and shipped into the county or to the hospital. But going back to the quality control on the print itself, it is a machine learning network where the printer is constantly learning on its own. And so what I mean by that is, if I know I'm going to make a deposit print of a certain dimension at a certain point in time of reference, as we continually make more and more parts across the entire network, and there's tens of thousands of printers around the world, the printers are file sharing to itself to ensure that its deposit is getting better and better each time with each print. So as we grow as a community, our ability to print will get better and better. But right now we're in the consistency of between 40 to 80 microns. So I think what we're talking about is really a perfect application.
We've had a couple questions here regarding scheduling. So when PPE comes in, a PPE order comes in, how does that interfere with any current orders that you're already producing through your 3D printer? Or is
Great question. So no, the command center does not interrupt the print. So whatever is printing on the existing network will continue and finished. And then the ability for the next print will be the PPE.
Another one that just came in, how do you schedule maintenance of those printers if they're printing from the network?
I don't know if the network really has anything to do with the scheduled maintenance of it. There is a maintenance program that runs along with it. There are different things that need to happen at certain times, and it basically runs just like your car. X number of hours is this, X number of hours printed is this, et cetera, and the maintenance will go along with it. There is a maintenance plan and a success plan for the first year of printing.
And Matt, isn't it also true that everybody will get very extensive training on how to use these printers? That also covers things like maintenance. There's a lot of work that kind of goes into this training that kind of makes you just much more aware of what some of those wearable components are and some of the ones that you got to take care, and how do you configure, how do you level the printer, things like that.
For sure, great point, Pavan. So there is Markforged University that comes along with everybody who gets a printer. So you have I forget the total number of hours. I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30 hours worth of training. And then there is all kinds of lunch and learns that's going on. There are full-time applications engineers from Markforged that'll be inside the network and available at all times. So it is a very, very community family-based environment, as well as there is a service house that is local in the Detroit area that will also be able to service your machine if necessary.
Matt, next one's for you as well. Can you talk about the costs that are associated with a 3D printer? So like when a company gets the 3D printer, are they going to have to pay for their own materials? And then is there any other operating costs that they may be aware of at a high level?
Yeah, so of course, there is a spool that comes with the original printer for you to, I'm going to use the word play with. And then there also is a pandemic spool that comes along with it as well in the case of an emergency. But during the normal day-to-day activities of using your printer to print for your own good, yes, the material will be purchased. There also is a planned buyback program where if you spend X amount of money on material, then you also get credit back towards your next purchase. And the normal wear and tear on the machine is very light. So obviously it's plugged into an outlet, so there's an electrical cost, which is very negligible. And then you will have some other wear and tear items that are inside the printer that you will have to change, some tubes and some other things. But in the general scheme of life, they're very, very low cost to operate.
Okay. This one might be for you, Pavan. How do you envision individual companies marketing their participation in the DIAMOnD program?
Yeah, excellent question.
Great question.
Yes. So, this calls more to like phase 2, right? Phase 2 is where we're creating truly not only a distributed, but a distributed and democratic, independent, agile manufacturing system. And that's basically where everybody is going to participate on this platform, the DIAMOnD platform, and then have the ability to showcase their wares. So we are thinking, and just kind of with a disclaimer that we're building this as we go, we're going to take a lot of feedback from the community itself, but think of this as sort of your Etsy store, but for 3D printing. So this is your mechanism, this is your ability to create maybe like an e-store where you're going to be able to put maybe specific designs. Let's say you have some interesting designs that you want to put on the network for 3D printing. And those could just be digital designs. In other words, you may not offer 3D printing services, but you might just offer an STL file, which is the underlying file that you use for 3D printing. That will all be exposed through a store. We are looking at how do we make that searchable so that third-party companies who are looking for that kind of information, those kinds of services, those kinds of assets will be able to find you. All of this is very exciting to us because all of this at some point is going to be distributed and decentralized. And the nice thing about being decentralized is there's not any individual company that's going to basically be able to enrich themselves. Our role as a nonprofit is to facilitate this open marketplace. And it'll be a long time before we get it right, but we're very excited that we're going to be able to do this and have the opportunity to participate. So stay tuned. And if you have ideas on how something like this could work, let us know. We may not be able to get back to you very quickly, but we're always looking for those ideas on how do you make this work really well. So marketing is definitely going to be a component of it. How do you make sales? That's going to be a component. How do you sell digital assets on an app store and things like that? That's going to be a component of it. Lots of exciting stuff coming down the pipe.
Next question is regarding the PPE badge. Can you talk about that a little bit more, Pavan, about the purpose of the badge and what it's supposed to represent?
I'll give that over to Matt, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the definition of the badge? Are you talking about the essential badge?
Yeah,
or are you talking?
I think
Yeah.
the question is, yeah.
Yeah, under Exhibit B in the agreement, what is the PPE badge to be produced?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically what that is a test print. So in order for us to verify that, so first of all, inside the network, we will constantly be taking a look at the telemetry going on in the machines, as well as being able to see how much they're being used, as well as being assured that they're connected and the network is still intact. So at that point, when you are finished your training and you go to do your test print, that is the essential badge. So at that point, we would like everybody to bring or ship or mail their individual part that they have printed off their machine back to Automation Alley. At that point, we will distribute the PPE spool that is in the case of emergency, as well issue your essential piece of paper certificate that says you are an essential company as part of the Project DIAMOnD grant.
Okay.
So basically what it is it's a small badge, about this big, maybe 3 inches by 6 inches in kind of an oblong shape. And it is basically just a test print that says, yep, my printer is up and functioning. It looks good.
It's a pretty cool badge, actually.
It is. It's very well designed. It is the Project DIAMOnD logo, which is kind of running in the background behind Eric, and it is. It's a very, very good logo. The people at Do Better did a great job with the logo.
Yeah. We had a couple other questions, so I'll break this out into two. So, why did we go with the Markforged printers? And then I guess once we, beyond this project, is there going to be options for other printers to be used on this network?
I'll let Matt take number one and I'll take number two.
Okay.
Yeah, the Markforged network, the Markforged printer was chosen due to its proven ability in the field, its ability to have carbon fiber at its same cost, and the Eiger command center network, we believe is best in class. So the reason why was due to finance, due to economics, and due to ease of use. I guess, is the three key elements. And then, Pavan, do you want to talk on part B?
Yeah, and there's a couple of other things too. So, Markforged has some, as a printer, it's as Matt mentioned, it's a pretty simple printer to get up and running in pretty much the location. We actually have one in our Woodward atrium. So if when hoping at some point everybody will start coming back into our facility, you can actually see it. So it's very easy to set up that the M2 desktop printer. And at the same time, the workflow that you use is similar to any 3D printer. So it's an industrial quality printer, easy to set up. It's also DoD compliant. So one of the things that we do as Automation Alley is we work with GVSC. We've got this contract where we help companies do business with GVSC. So in that very quick decision-making realm, and Matt also came to us opportunistically, and Matt had worked and had extensive experience with Markforged. So we kind of thought we have to make this project a success. We have to make this something that companies find valuable. And so we chose Markforged, just given the time frame. But to the other question, absolutely, down the road, we would like to have the ability to have other 3D printers that have maybe complementary materials. Markforged is a very specific material set that they use. If there's another 3D printer that can be integrated onto the Project Diamond network, it'd be wonderful to have them. And what we're doing then is at some point be 3D printer agnostic, but we had to start somewhere. And so we had to make the decisions quickly. We had to kind of think in terms of what would be really beneficial for our grantees if they had something like a Markforged in their environment. Would that be of great benefit to them? And the answer was a resounding yes. And that was really the driver. Can they really benefit? And then do we have the ability to meet this need of being able to produce PPE? So those two gave us the answer. Yes, we had to kind of go, and that's the decision we made. But yes, in the future, we'd absolutely be interested in having other 3D printers on the network.
Yeah, especially in SLA like Stratasys or something that can be used for more printing that is not much less industrial as with the Markforged printer. So for example, the Onyx reinforced with carbon fiber is basically as strong as aluminum and lighter. So it has a very, very high strength ratio, especially in the world of tooling. So you'll see some of the demonstrations on the 3D printing side tomorrow of different areas that this composite material can be used in the workforce.
Okay. I'll take the next question since it's regards to the assessment. So we had a question on what is the goal behind the assessment intake form. So the intake form is primarily to figure out what type of assessment we send to companies. So there's two different types that we send to companies. For companies that have 1 to 4 employees, so pretty small, pretty small setup, we have them take what's called the executive assessment. And then for anyone else who has 5 or more employees, we have them go through the regular Industry 4.0 assessment. And that's where everyone in the company, or at least a good cross section of the company, it depends on how many people are in the company. So if you have 90 employees, we might only be able to get like 30 or 40, but they're like a good representation of all the entire company. And so our idea with the intake form is primarily to figure out which is the best way to go about giving you the best assessment value. Because if we give you the full form and you only have 3 employees, it doesn't really provide much value in terms of the analysis that we're able to do. And then for anyone who is 15 or more employees, and we're able to get 15 responses, then we're actually able to use our artificial intelligence program to provide some analysis at a deeper level with what the leadership team is saying, what the rest of the company is saying, which it's pretty cool what we're able to do just using this program within our assessment. So
actually, let's let it, because it's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
The assessment is actually based on this program that we've been running now for quite a few years. And this was supported by the MEDC. And One of the things we found out very early on in our Industry 4.0 analysis, as we started looking at companies, is that as much as people want to talk about technology and how do you kind of integrate technology, often the challenges for in Industry 4.0 adoption and identification of opportunities is much more a culture issue. And then along with culture, companies need to have the resources, which is finance. And so what we did was we said, really, there are three pillars that every company needs to strengthen. One is culture, and that is the ability to take on, new innovative ideas and execute them and implement them in the organization. Finance, which is having the resources, and then finally the technology contextualized for that human context. And so the assessment program that we built over time, which has been extremely successful, is that reflection. We are very careful that we don't try to make this something that is like consulting. It's not consulting. It doesn't give companies advice on what to do. What it does is it gives them pointers that says, here's your cultural framework, but if you want to be more nimble and agile, here are some of the things that you need to do from a cultural perspective to actually change that and become much more agile. Same thing with the finance. We might look at, in that full assessment that Eric talked about, we can look at your financial performance over some time frame, and we can say, if you had a little bit more liquidity and you generated more cash on your operations and you had more liquidity on the balance sheet, you might be able to take what we call option-like bets in Industry 4.0. And then finally, on the technology side, we say, how do you do things that are much more in line with your business model, so that the technology is contextualized for your business? And that's really where the assessment comes from. And as Eric mentioned, we have these two versions. We have the executive assessment, which is sort of an assessment that gives you more direction for a smaller team, but then it can be scaled up to extremely large organizations as well. And for this program, we have a pretty wide range in terms of the demographics. We have some companies that have just single digit numbers of employees. And then we have all the way to larger companies. They all qualify. So that's sort of where that assessment intake form also comes to play.
Yeah, and I can actually provide an example of how it would fit into this program. So think about if you have in the assessment, we uncover any issues between handoff between sales and operations, and maybe there's some missing pieces with like the meetings or something like that. And so how that could affect this project is if there's not good communication about how to essentially market the 3D printer, how to go about operating it, that's where we can step in and say, okay, let's make sure that you guys are communicating properly, so that way when you get this 3D printer, you can hit the ground running and everyone on the team has a full understanding of what's going on. And then along with that, we can provide some insight as to, what areas of the business does it make sense to put some investment towards, maybe managing better workflows and those types of things. So, so that's kind of what the assessment will uncover, is all the underlying issues or big macro issues that can be resolved, which will then help out the day-to-day work that you're doing, not only on this project, but in other areas of the business. Another question that's come in, is there going to be a local supply center to get more material when PPE requests go into effect?
Yes, the material stored just north of Auburn Hills.
Okay. Another one, will you be monitoring all print files that are printed outside of the DIAMOnD program?
I don't know what we mean by outside of the DIAMOnD program, but the actual monitoring of files, the answer is no. The overall monitoring of the equipment itself, I don't know if monitor is the right word, but like I had mentioned earlier, we will be ensuring that the printer is on the network. And then we'll also be taking some industry telemetry data behind the scenes that basically is how many hours was it plugged in, how many hours was it working, et cetera.
Yeah, but I think in terms of intent, I'm assuming this was the intent of the question. We have no desire to know what was printed. Like, that's not the intent of this, is to kind of, figure out what that is. And that goes back to that whole IP question, which, like I said, we'll get some answers on. But the objective is once you get this piece of equipment, we want to make you feel like it's yours, that it's not like it was just on loan or something like that, that it truly is yours. You're using it to build your business, but then you promise as part of this program to make it available to produce PPE as necessary. But other than that, no, you use it as you want. We don't want to know what's being printed on it. It's your equipment from our, the way we look at it, it's your equipment.
And to another point to that, Pavan, is we also have a group of engineers that are there to support you in that development of IP. So the amount of excitement that we have as a group in order to generate not only revenue for the small business, but also new ideas and new opportunities, new landscapes, anything humanly possible that you think you can do with that printer, we are on side to support it getting done.
Just another question about the PPE materials. Is there going to be an associated cost with getting those materials from the supply store?
Is there a delivery charge? I think that's the question.
Like, I mean, are they going to have to pay for the materials, get the...
Yes. So every material that you purchase, no different than in a subtractive environment, if I'm making a widget, I need to buy a block of steel, cut it, machine it in order to make that widget. It's exactly the same idea. You would purchase the raw material as a spool, and that would then be converted into something additively.
But I think maybe the clarification that the person who's asking the question is, if that material is used in PPE that was ordered by the county, you will be compensated for it. In other words, you're not paying for something that the county ordered. And that will be, so that's what Matt said earlier, is there's going to be this emergency spool that will be sent out for that first order of PPE if it ever materializes. But outside of that, if you use the printer for your own purposes, absolutely, you'll pay for the material. But if you're using the printer for producing PPE as part of the Diamond project, you'll use material that's either given to you, or if you have to purchase it, then you'll be compensated. And we're working on those cost models, but our objective absolutely is to make sure that you're suitably compensated, potentially with some profit. Again, we have to be quick, so we don't have details on it. But our intent is that, no way should you ever feel that, oh my God, I paid for this and I paid for that, and now I feel like I'm not really getting, no, that's not the intent of this. The intent of this is, you'll get compensated for everything that's being ordered.
Yeah. Is there a minimum amount of materials that has to be stored and available at all times to make the PPE?
No, there's the one spool that is going to come along with the printer. And then we have yet to determine whether we will need to purchase another spool.
Okay. I don't know if you guys can speak to this. As the COVID-19 numbers are rising, do you know when we might expect the first PPE request to come in?
No, you're absolutely. It's very difficult to project those kinds of things, and we're looking for direction from the county on that, or counties from that, because we have not just Oakland, we also have Macomb counties, and we're in constant communication with them. We have not received anything in terms of any kind of direction on that, but good question. But no, we don't have any visibility on that at this point.
Okay. This one's on the legal side. Is there a deadline to sign the contract?
Well, there isn't any explicit deadline, but there is there's an expectation in terms of the grant to have this completed by December 31st in terms of all the companies having their equipment. And so, if we're having companies extending the signatures, you might lose your spot, just from a logistics standpoint, because we do have a deadline from the standpoint of being able to disperse these funds. We're working under very specific federal guidelines on this. And again, it's Oakland County, Automation Alley, all under the governance and direction of the federal guidelines on this. So we just have to kind of make sure that, unless there's a reason, our encouragement is sign it as soon as possible. And there probably are some logistics constraints as well. The sooner you get your contract in, sooner you'll get your equipment, sooner you'll get your training, all that good stuff. So you probably want to kind of, keep that as well in mind.
Yeah. This next one's for you as well, Pavan. So if a company during the 3-year period decides to move outside of Oakland County, will that affect the agreement at all? Or will they still be, how does that come into play? Or do
Yeah, good question. We'll probably have to defer to Oakland County on that because that's the direction we were given from them. So we'll report that as another question. And again, to all participants, any questions that we can't answer today, we are continuing to put together a very detailed set of frequently asked questions. So please, from time to time, look up on that. And I know we don't have a website right now, but we will be putting all of those online in terms of the Project Diamond website, all these other resources, etc. So just stay tuned, stay patient. Thank you.
And all the training, Pavan. So training, where do I buy? How do I buy? What do I do? All of those things are all going to be in that area as well.
Yeah.
Matt, can you talk about the size of the printers that just a little bit description about the size of the printers and where they should be located within the facility?
Yeah, so 85% of the printers that are going to be shipped are a Mark II, which is basically the size of a microwave back when microwaves kind of first came out and they were on your countertop before they moved up above your stove. So they don't need any special ventilation or any environment. A surge protector power strip would be advantageous. They just plug into a 110 outlet. You have the option to either wire connect them to your network or they run off Wi-Fi just like your home printer, either or. We would prefer if they were cabled versus Wi-Fi. It just makes life a little bit easier in the transfer of data. But basically that is the nuts and bolts of it. You just need a general spot on a desk and the ability to use your brain and invent something awesome in order to put into it.
Matt, are there still any metal printers available?
No, there were 2 metal sites chosen in Oakland County, and they are both been chosen and are in the process of being installed.
Okay. Just another question here. Will the counties be running any test prints to test the overall robustness of the blockchain system? So I'm guessing once the system is up and running, are they going to be doing any further validation?
So removing the word blockchain for the overall network itself and how the functioning of Project Diamond works, the answer is 100% yes. There will be test prints of the system, a final test print along with also tests of the network itself. And then Pavan, I don't know if you want to jump in and we'll insert the word blockchain back into it. Yes. And continue forward with that.
Yeah, so there's this is an interesting distinction we have to make. In phase 1, we'll be using more of a centralized system for the PPE side of it, for the command center software that Matt referred to. In phase 2, we will be slowly introducing this concept of the open marketplace with blockchain, and there will be rigorous testing for that as well, with smaller numbers of participants, making sure that the blockchain is robust, the distributed ledger, it has high integrity, etc. But that'll happen over time, and these will run in parallel. And the command center software and the blockchain system will actually exist in parallel. So they're actually 2 parallel systems. The difference being that the command center software is to essentially push the printing of PPE in case there's an emergency, while the open marketplace software is for companies to essentially put their digital assets as well as their 3D printing assets on the marketplace and be able to transact business and then generate revenues through that mechanism as well. And those printers will be basically have access on both networks and be accessible on both networks.
Pavan, this one may be for you as well. Is Automation Alley going to help businesses either in phase 1 or phase 2 give them tools or resources to finding business outside of the PPE requirements?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question, and our intent is absolutely. So one of the things we're looking at is, as we're building this 3D print network, what are other opportunities that we can bring to this network so that our companies that have that the grantees that already have printers can essentially generate revenues. And we're looking at, maybe some scenarios, maybe some use cases where we might say, hey, company out here, you want to maybe produce 5,000 components of this part that can be printed on the Markforged network. How can we kind of be that entity that can take that order, distribute it through the command center so that our companies are actually generating revenue? Our goal is that this becomes, a profit center for you as well. One of the use cases we're looking at is there anything that we can do with the Department of Defense? Is there any component that can be printed through these printers securely that can be pushed in and be produced? So we're looking at all kinds of opportunities. It's something that we haven't done before, so we're kind of learning as we go. There's a lot of interesting things that you have to consider when you do design for additive, when you create essentially a business model on additive. There's a lot of interesting things, but that's very much our intent. And so we want you to be as excited about this as we are for the new business models that are possible with this approach.
And I think we have time for one more question. What are the max dimensions for pieces to be printed for the PPE?
I'll take that one, Eric.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny. So this question always comes up, especially when we start the training and starting talking to engineers about how do I design for additive. So we need to ask ourselves the question when we start to design for additive. Forget about everything you've ever learned. So anything you've ever manufactured, built, you can basically throw it out the window and forget about it. So the easy answer is, for a non-metal, is about the size of a volleyball. For a metal part, is about the size of a grapefruit. That is the nuts and bolts of approximately how big the envelope is inside the printers. But you can print something the size of a table. You can print something the size of, end of arm tooling is a great example. But you have to use some ingenuity and figure out, and again, this is where our applications engineers come into play, figure out how to make the products work together and almost like bolt together like Meccano in order to make it fit and function. And tomorrow, if you tune into tomorrow's 3D printing section, I'll be showing some examples and some great examples of how that works in everyday life.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, I think that's about all the time we have left. But as you said, we will be having another session tomorrow at 10:05 a.m. It's called Printing Tactical Application of Additive Manufacturing, and that's what we'll talk more deeply about, the additive manufacturing. And as Pavan mentioned, we're developing an FAQ to answer some more of these questions that have come in, and so that way you guys have a resource that you can go to in case we weren't able to answer all your questions in this session. But I just want to thank Matt, thank Pavan, thank Tom for speaking today, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this session. We'll see you at the next one.